Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Xony, and today we're going to have some more stories from Reddit. But before we start, it would be so much appreciated if you would subscribe to my channel, like the video if you enjoy it, and maybe leave a comment down below. These simple clicks would mean a lot to the future of this channel and really reward the effort that I put in every day. And now without further, let's go. Now let's get into the second story. My 30 male, fiancé 28 female, and I used to work in the same firm when we met. I'm a little bit older than she is, so I had already established myself in the office when she was a new hire. We connected right away and it didn't take long for us to start dating. Because my office has a strict no dating policy, we kept our relationship a secret until she was able to find another job somewhere else. We both saw a lot of potential in our relationship, so it was her choice to leave the firm to work somewhere else. Our relationship was great for the first couple of years. We were happy together and both of us would talk about the grand plans we had for our future. She moved into my house and shortly after I proposed, we put our plans for the wedding on the back burner because we were both so focused on our careers. Neither of us was super invested in having a huge wedding anyway. I'd been married before in the past. My ex-wife was my first love and things didn't end well with us, so taking the step to propose to my fiancé was a big deal for me. She and I had talked about marriage for a good majority of our relationship and she assured me that she valued it and took it seriously. That was important to me, otherwise I wouldn't have proposed. She was new at the firm she was practicing law at, and the partners who worked above her took advantage of her eagerness to get ahead. They always had her stay late to cover a lot of the grunt work that the more experienced lawyers in the firm didn't want to do. I knew that my fiancé was brilliant, so it upset me. However, she knew that it was something she was going to have to get past when she was hired there, so she took it on the chin and worked through it. After about a year of working at the firm, she got a promotion and all of that stopped. She was being treated with the utmost respect, and she was bringing a lot of loyal clientele to the firm. The partners there realized that they were lucky to have her. So when she started staying extra late at the office, using the excuse of having an excess of papers to file or other small menial tasks, I started getting a little suspicious. Up until that point, she hadn't done anything to make me question our relationship. Because of what happened with my ex-wife, I was a little on edge with my fiancé. I had some trust issues that I needed to work through. A couple of times a week, she would stay later at the office to do work that an assistant or an intern should have been doing. One night, I asked her about it, and she got somewhat confrontational with me in response. She didn't think I had the right to question what she was doing at her job. We got into a bit of an argument over it, because she was framing it as me being possessive of her time, or controlling when that wasn't the case. I'll admit, I might have been in the wrong for questioning her for it to begin with, but she wasn't very understanding of where I was coming from. In the end, she was cheating on me when she was staying late at the office. She was just trying to deflect some of the guilt onto me by making me the bad guy. Anyway, we got over the fight, and things went back to normal for a couple of weeks. We talked through it, and I explained the things that I went through with my ex-wife. And she told me that she would try and make me feel a little more comfortable. She had her assistant pick up some of the slack at the office, and she didn't have to stay late for a couple of weeks. Our offices were on the same block, not even a 2-minute walk away from each other. We would often get together and have lunch at a cafe near us. One morning she was complaining to me about how she wasn't going to be able to make lunch because she was going to be working through it to attend a Zoom meeting with some overseas clients. I felt bad for her, so I thought it would be a nice gesture to grab her something quick to eat and run it over to her while I was on my lunch break. I got there and the receptionist told me that she went out to lunch. It was weird, but I tried not to let my mind get carried away because it was entirely possible that a meeting was cancelled or she was just grabbing a bagel from a street vendor. I left the office and later that night, when we were both home, I mentioned how I stopped by to bring her food and she wasn't there. She confirmed what I initially thought and told me that she just needed a coffee break and went to a cafe down the street. Over the next few weeks, I noticed that she was on her phone a lot more while we were together. She was constantly messaging someone and she was very protective of it in front of me. She would be sure to tilt the phone away from me when she opened a message or took a call. A lot of red flags were raised for me again when she started acting like that. I was afraid that if I mentioned anything about it, I was going to push her away from me, and I didn't want that. I thought that she was somebody that I could see myself with, and I wanted to trust her. She called me one evening about an hour before she was supposed to leave the office and told me that one of the other lawyers at her firm had a family emergency, and they were all staying late to help them out. I asked for more details, but she was very vague about everything. I noticed that she hesitated when I asked about what lawyer had the emergency as well. My gut told me that she was lying. I told her that I was fine with her staying and just to call me when she was on her way home, so I knew when to expect her. Instead of going home that night, I parked my car outside of her office building and kept my eyes on the door. Around 5 o'clock, I noticed several of her co-workers leaving the office on time. The real nail in the coffin was seeing the man she told me had a family emergency walk out of the building. It seemed like everybody but my fiancé left the building to go home. I waited for about half an hour to see if anybody else struggled out of the building, and no one did. I worked up the nerve to go inside to see what was really going on. I was terrified to find out what the truth was, but I knew that I needed to. I got out of my car and went into the building to find her offices almost completely empty. My fiancé's things were still sitting by her desk, so it confirmed to me that she was in fact there. I happened to notice that her phone was sitting on the desk. I picked it up and did a quick search. Through it to see if there was any indication of what I was about to find. There was a brief conversation with a partner from her firm telling her that he needed her and told her to come up with an excuse to stay late. She responded with a thumbs up and 15 minutes later sent him an office number. I put the phone down and went right to that office. The blinds were drawn, but I could hear very obvious intimacy noises from the other side of the door. I almost didn't want to open it. I knew what was happening. I didn't need to see it with my own eyes. But I wanted to get that confirmation. I also want to get the proof. I pulled out my phone and I opened the door while I had my camera set to record. My fiancé and one of the partners at the firm were both at a conference table having intimate. They were lying down with their feet closest to the door, so they didn't even notice me right away. I was frozen there for a moment trying to figure out what I wanted to do. I could have made a huge scene right then and there. But I decided not to. I decided that I wanted to make them both regret what they did before they had a chance to try and explain it away. I quietly closed the door and rushed out of the office to go home. I spent the majority of the night in my home office to avoid my fiancé. I knew some of the other partners and employees at my fiancé's firm, so when she was out of earshot I reached out to them and told them what happened. People were shocked, and they were honestly disturbed that they were so brazenly having an affair in the office. One of the other lawyers at the firm told me that he would contact HR on my behalf to file a report. I sent him the evidence that I had of their affair and left it in his hands. I didn't say anything to my fiancée about her staying late at the office at all. When she noticed I seemed much calmer about it this time around, she did it again 2 nights later. She called me and told me that she would be staying late to help the same coworker who had the family emergency catch up on work. When she told me that, I reached out to her coworker who said they'd contact HR and told him that she would likely be engaging in those activities at every night. He told me he would take care of it. I parked outside of her office again that night. I noticed that a majority of the staff left the building on time, aside from my fiancé and the man she was cheating on me with. The co-worker that I spoke with lingered outside with another woman for about 10 minutes before they both went back inside the building. I didn't know if they were planning on catching them in the act or what, but I imagined that they probably would. About 15 minutes later, my fiancé practically ran out of the building in visible distress. The other 3 people were not far behind her. My fiancé saw me sitting in the car across the street from her building and ran right over to it. She tried to open the door, but it was locked. I rolled down the window and I asked her what was wrong. I think she knew right away that I had some involvement in whatever just happened in the building. She told me that she had just been fired and wanted to go home to deal with it. I told her that she was no longer welcome in my home and that she would need to find a hotel room for the night. I rolled up the window before I drove off, leaving her crying on the sidewalk. The engagement was broken off. Thankfully, we had barely started planning the wedding, so there wasn't much to take care of as far as that goes. The partner that she was sleeping with ended up getting fired from the firm as well. I've had about enough I can take of being betrayed by my partners. I hate to be this way, but it's going to take a long time for me to be willing to open up with another woman. Maybe someday I'll meet someone who I can put my trust in.